This is
Cast.
Hello there, and welcome to a brand new episode of my podcast, Podcast Racing. Today, I'm going to be talking about the movie remakes, reboots, all that jazz in general. And I am joined again by a very special guest from a previous episode, the director of the short film Just a Few Questions, MaryAnn Keyser. How are you doing, MaryAnn?
I'm pretty great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Still trying to stay safe and, be healthy and all that stuff. But I actually got a wisdom tooth removed recently, so I taken a couple days off of work and caught up on like some movies and shows I've been meaning to watch.
Oh, wow. You only had one taken out?
No, two actually.
Oh, okay, because I had all of mine taken out at once when I had mine, so that was a fun week.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I didn't want to get all of them taken out. I want to heal as quickly as possible so that I could get back to making money and working as soon than later,
Understandable.
But yeah, so today we're going to be talking about and possibly even defending movie remakes, reboots, all that stuff. But first, MaryAnn, I want to ask you, because I genuinely don't know, we didn't talk about beforehand. I want to ask you, so the most popular, or at least the most recent movie remake is the Mulan live-action remake, which is pretty controversial
Right.
even since first when they announced it. Have you seen it, and what do you think of it?
I did see it. I actually did not fork over the $30. I had a friend who was kind enough to let me use her account. She bought it on hers, so I watched it from her account. And I actually did like it quite a bit. I didn't like it as much as the animated version from the 90s, but I did like it a lot.
I'm not gonna lie, I was really hoping that we were gonna be on the same page as this one, but we're not. I really did not
Well,
like
that
it.
wouldn't be a fun conversation if it was just, I agree.
No, it wouldn't, but I feel like, I mean, I know I'm definitely not alone on this, but like,
Yeah, you're not. I think
gosh,
I'm in the minority on this one.
trust me, I actually have seen a few positive reviews on YouTube and Letterboxd defending the new Mulan, but I really did not like it. I found it to be basically like, well, they did change a few things, but for the most part, it's really the same tale, just told worse.
Okay.
I don't know. There's a lot about it I didn't like. I really disliked the editing. I thought the editing was atrocious. I thought that Yi Fei Liu was pretty bad, actually. I mean, it's probably not entirely her fault because uh, she probably learned English like just for this movie and probably didn't speak it that well beforehand. But I just her line delivery was so off. I really disliked how they got rid of the songs. They got rid of Mushu. They made Shang like a lot less interesting character. And what they did with Mulan herself, I feel like the remake really ruins the character of Mulan.
So I actually heard the same thing about the editing. I don't really know a lot about editing myself to really have like a strong feeling one way or another. I think I can see why you say that and others do, because I didn't really think it was like amazing or anything. So I'm okay with that criticism. I think that's fair.
Yeah, it just bothered me a lot. So I really actually paid a lot more attention. I find myself paying attention to editing a lot more lately, mostly because of me editing these podcast episodes.
Sure.
And I just tell, yeah, like because of that, I find myself and watching a couple of like film analyses videos and all that. I find myself paying attention to editing specifically a lot more in film, and just the just there were so many shots in there were too many shots in Mulan. Rarely did they really focus on one particular action or one particular character, and rarely was there in the Mulan remake a shot that was like more than 5 seconds. Like they cut so often, especially in the action scenes.
Yeah.
And I was hoping that they would go along with more of a like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon filmmaking style where yes, there is, there are cuts and stuff, but the takes in between each cut, each edit are quite long to sort of show off uh, the martial arts skills and the training that the actors and stunt doubles really put in, and to show off like really impressive action. And but with Mulan, like the action sequences were just annoying to watch because I couldn't get. I'm sure that there was a lot of hard work done by the actors and the stunt people behind the scenes, but like on the film, we can't really appreciate it because it cuts between each shot, each camera, each like camera frame, like so much that I couldn't appreciate the hard work that Donnie Yen or Yifei Liu put in. Because Yifei Liu, I mentioned that I really didn't like her acting, but her fighting skills, her stunt choreography was actually pretty good. Like I could tell that she was doing a lot of stunts herself and that she put in a lot of hard work to make the action scenes work, but I couldn't appreciate it because I could barely see it for like more than 2 seconds at a time.
Yeah, that's true.
And also, I just really my biggest issue with the Mulan remake is that the original Mulan I love, and one thing that I love about it is that Mulan is an ordinary person, an ordinary girl who goes to pretends to be a man so that her dad his dad's life can be spared and all that.
Right.
And when she first starts out, as pretending to be a soldier, she's not a very good soldier at all. But then with perseverance, dedication, and hard work, and also with a little bit of smarts, she does become a really good soldier and is able to defeat, I forget the bad guy's name from Mulan. I know he's a Hun, but I can't remember exactly what his name was. But
I'm not sure.
Yeah, but like the original Mulan, I love that so much because it shows an ordinary girl becoming a badass. But
Right.
in the new remake, Mulan is already like so powerful, and we even see her as a little kid like doing all these impressive like martial arts skills, moves, and all that. And people are just telling her to hide that because she has to be a daughter, not a warrior. And I feel like I don't know, I feel like that message can actually be like harmful to young girls because the message of the original animated classic is that with perseverance and hard work you can become somebody really special, a mighty warrior. But the remake, it basically like is I don't know if I'm just being cynical or really misinterpreted it, but I feel like the message of the remake is, oh, you can be a mighty warrior or really special, but as long as you're born special or already skilled. And I feel like that's a really harmful message to young girls out there because, like, I don't know, I feel like a young girl could watch the original Mulan and become empowered or motivated, but they might watch the remake and think like, oh, I'll never be as cool as her, so why should I even try?
That's interesting. I didn't really think of it that way until you mentioned it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a young girl anymore, so I'm not sure how much my age or opinion matters anymore. I'm 28 now, but I still felt pretty empowered by it. I guess for me, it was more of just seeing like the fact that she's in a situation where she's at a disadvantage because she's a woman and she's trying to pretend to be a man. that's already something that she has to overcome. It's not just, you know, the becoming stronger, the fighting part. It's overcoming the sexist ideals that were placed upon her. So that, at least, I really enjoyed seeing that. And I enjoyed that in both movies. Just the idea of having to hide who you are and having to conform to what the men say that you should be is, for me, I found that pretty cool. But I do understand, I think you make a valid point also. I didn't think of it as like the chosen one type narrative thing, which is kind of, I think, what you were going on about. Would you agree that it's kind of like a chosen one narrative now in the new one?
Yeah, it definitely is a, well, I mean, no, well, the original movie also had a chosen one narrative, except the original movie is so great in my opinion because she worked to become the chosen one, and in the remake, she already is the chosen one, and I just feel like that's very alienating and possibly harmful message that, oh, if you're not already born the chosen one, then you know, oh, you're not worthy enough. And in Mulan, she well, yeah, I mean, you know, like it was, I guess, looking back, it is fairly predictable that she was going to be a chosen one considering she's a main character, but I mean, that
Yeah.
movie had a chosen one narrative too, but she worked to become the chosen one.
Yeah, that's true.
But
Would you say
anyway,
the same thing then again about, to get a little bit off topic, but still in the Disney umbrella sort of, would you say the same thing about Rey's journey in the Star Wars sequels?
the thing with Rey is that it's kind of both. In Force Awakens and Last Jedi, Rey, I mean, they didn't do that great of a job. Like, you know, be obviously because with people calling her Mary Sue, even from the beginning, even from back from 2015, they were calling her Mary Sue. But I feel like they showed a little bit of Rey really working to become this all-powerful Jedi, you know, the last Jedi. And
Right.
but then they gave her a, oh no, she was just born powerful and awesome by making her Palpatine in The Rise of Skywalker. So like I feel like they were going along the lines of a working to become the chosen one narrative, but then J.J. Abrams was just like, nope, she was just born powerful.
So I wonder if part of the reason why they did that was because people were asking why she was so powerful with no backstory. And I know there were some people who thought, you know, it didn't really make sense that she was able to pick up on mind tricks so quickly and how she was able to defeat Kylo Ren so quickly. And that's why people really liked speculating on her background and if she was, you know, a Skywalker or I know there were some very small subsets of people who actually did call it that she was a Palpatine. I just wonder if maybe it wasn't necessarily J.J. Abrams' decision himself to do that to make her Palpatine, or if it was like a story team's decision to be like, well, she has to have these powers for some reason. She can't just be born with powers, or what? I don't know.
Well,
We might not ever.
I actually read somewhere that apparently the script for Rise of Skywalker was co-written between Abrams and Chris Terrio. Chris Terrio also wrote Argo and Batman v Superman.
Right.
And I actually read somewhere that it was him who came up with the idea in the first place.
Oh, I see.
So yeah, so it personally makes a lot of sense to me because I don't think Chris Terrio is a very good writer. I think Argo is a great film, but that's because of Ben Affleck. I don't think
I
Chris
have
Terrio is a very good writer.
Nope, I have not seen Argo, so I can't comment on
No,
that.
but I just realized going further along the Disney train, I just realized Captain Marvel, Rise of Skywalker, and Mulan all have the same problem. To me, at least, they all feature female protagonists who are born powerful. Well, actually, Captain Marvel, no. Well, they're basically already powerful in the beginning of the movie, and then they stay powerful and don't really go through any or whatever emotional growth or character development they go through is unsatisfying to watch. And I feel like, wow, I just realized like all three of the protagonists in Captain Marvel, Rise of Skywalker, and Mulan, they're all kind of in terms of like power level, in terms of already being powerful, so they don't really have to work hard to get their powers and be awesome, mighty protagonists or whatever. What Disney like? Do you get what I know I'm not saying this very eloquently. Like, do you get what I'm saying? Like, basically, all three of these movies, I feel like, have feature female protagonists who are kind of Mary Sue's now, and where unfortunately young girls can get the wrong message from Mulan, Captain Marvel, and Rey. I just realized, and they're all from Disney. Like, wow! I just realized, like Disney, what are you teaching? Like, and Frozen 2 as well. Frozen 2 with Elsa. Like, I feel like a lot of young girls identify more with Elsa than Anna, which I think is a bad thing because, yeah, just like Mulan and Captain Marvel, Elsa's also already born powerful and doesn't really have to try that hard to be, the chosen one, the savior, a mighty warrior, whatever. That's really bad. Wow, I just realized. But do you get what I'm trying to say though?
Yeah, I do see what you're saying. This is something that I've heard and read a lot for all the characters that you mentioned, and it's kind of hard for me to take just because, like, I just defended Mulan a little bit, and I want to defend Rey, and I want to defend Captain Marvel, and probably Elsa too, although I've only seen Frozen 2 once, so I'm not quite as familiar with the lore or the story as much as the other ones. But I do kind of have to wonder, like, I know sometimes if the female leads in terms of the actors, if they don't get extremely like in shape or extremely buff or, really clearly big action size or what, I'm not necessarily phrasing that correctly, but like, I wonder if it's compensating for the fact that so many times, at least in the past with films and stories in general, that people have said, oh, well, it's unrealistic that the girl would beat up that guy or something. And so I wonder if it's compensation for like, well, you can't argue with it now because she has more actual powers and it's not just a matter of size or whatever, or practicality, I guess, if that makes sense.
If it is compensation for that, then I think that that's really lame and unrealistic. I prefer like I like I think that that's actually kind of worse in a way because in a way you're doing the opposite of it's kind of a lose-lose situation in my mind because before when you say or when people would say, oh, that's unrealistic that that woman would beat up that man, but now you're like, wait, oh, it's so unrealistic that that woman can so easily beat up that man. Like, I mean, yes, part of it is, a sexism kind of thing. There's that the sexism angle definitely contributes to that, but and I don't know, just like I would just prefer to see like I don't mind all these characters becoming like being almighty powerful warriors, badass, awesome female protagonists. I just want to see them, like earn that way of being through hard work, perseverance, determination, dedication, all that stuff, because I feel like that's more and more empowering message for young girls to see that kind of thing, see that, oh, through like hard work and determination they can they can what's it called, be that be well not be able to shoot lightning out of their hands or wield a
Right.
sword like that, but still but become a fearless, powerful, badass woman. And I think the one exception to this though is Wonder Woman. I think that Wonder Woman, like all these other female protagonists, like Mulan and Captain Marvel, she was born, powerful, like a literal Amazon goddess.
Yeah.
But I still think that Wonder Woman is an empowering role model for little girls because of how she acts. Wonder Woman is compassionate. Wonder Woman is selfless. She's kind and fearless. And I think that that's another great message to give to tell young girls to you can save the day too by being fearless, compassionate, selfless, kind, and already make her powerful can satisfy the really hardcore feminists out there. So so that's a difference. That's a different story. And like I don't know, like I feel like if you wanted to make Ray, Captain Marvel, Mulan, like Wonder Woman, already powerful characters, then you really have to still show them being an interesting character, featuring an empowering message for little girls out there in a different way. And I don't think that the live action Mulan remake or any of the other films I mentioned really did a good job, unlike Wonder Woman.
Okay, well, one thing I guess I'll say about Wonder Woman is that since you were saying that she has a more well-rounded character because she is a character who's compassionate and those kinds of characteristics. I did like that also, at least in the 2017 film. That's really the only iteration of Wonder Woman I'm familiar with. They actually showed those qualities to also be kind of negatives for her. Like she kind of almost had to overcome them. Like she got really overwhelmed when she saw all the suffering in the world. And it was hard for her to keep moving forward. And she was just so upset with like the war and everything that it wasn't just like, oh, well, I'm here to beat everybody up or I'm here to, save the day. Like she had to actually take a moment and overcome those feelings that she had. And that was pretty interesting to me, I thought. So I agree with you on that sense.
That's that's another great thing that I really liked about Patty Jenkins' film is that it didn't show Wonder Woman as Wonder Woman was powerful but not perfect. And I feel like with Disney, they're making their female protagonists a little too perfect on the surface. But I feel like by doing so that I feel like by doing so that it's actually can be, again, not to sound like a broken record, but present a harmful or unintentionally wrong message to young girls. But I don't think that Disney is being malicious about it. I just don't think that they fully realize they're not fully thinking through what they're doing by making these female protagonists too powerful. You get what I'm saying?
I do. And so something that I do think is worth noting, I'm not sure of the implications of it, but Mulan was directed by a woman. I believe, was it also written by a woman? Let me see. The new one, at least.
Well, it was written by a man and a woman.
Okay, so there were 4 credited writers. 3 were women, 1 was a man. And the director was a female. And then for Captain Marvel was co-directed by a man and a woman. And then Star Wars had no female writers or directors.
Right.
And then Wonder Woman, I believe, was a male writer, actually.
Yeah, all male writers, but the female director, Patty Jenkins.
Yeah, so that's something that's interesting to think about. Like, obviously, I would never say, like, only women can tell women's stories or only men can tell men's stories. Like, that's absolutely absurd to think that. But it is just interesting to note who's involved with the telling of these stories and who they're choosing to make their protagonists and what they choose to make their protagonists do. And what does it say about them and what does it say about the industry and the people who hired them?
Right. And that is a really great topic to discuss for another time, but I don't want to get too off topic now. This episode is about movie like remakes and reboots. Well, probably mostly remakes and all that stuff. But before we go on too far of a rant or tangent, let's go back to discussing remakes in general. And in order to talk about movie remakes nowadays, you have to address, which is why I asked you about Mulan earlier, you have to address the controversy behind the Disney live-action remakes.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people really don't like the Disney live-action remakes, me included. I don't like about half of them. I do think some of them are really great and or have really great positive qualities about them, which I'll
Mhm.
elaborate further on in a bit. But just these Disney live action remakes in general, how do you feel about them?
I actually really like them. I enjoy them for the vast majority. In fact, if I was going to make a list of all of them, I don't even know which one I would say I actually disliked. Like, obviously, I have a if I put them in order, I would have an order. But I don't really think there's any off the top of my head that I'm like, yeah, that was definitely terrible. I would say the worst one was probably The Lion King.
Oh yeah.
I think that one was probably the worst because that one's weird because it's like it's about talking animals, so there's not really anything that you're changing or doing differently by making a live action version in quotation marks because it's not really live action. Like if they actually rounded up lions and did like those Airbud movies where they make their mouths talk or something, that would be quite a feat, but that's not
Well,
what they did. So
that's
it
literally
just was
impossible.
like, okay.
That's literally
Yeah,
impossible. If they tried to round up lions, then they would get eaten.
exactly. So it's like, okay, I don't really see what is being done differently. Like, it's cool though to hear different voices. Like, I liked hearing Donald Glover in Simba because I think he did a very good job
See,
in
I
that
see,
role.
I love Donald Glover. I love Childish Gambino, but
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, it just sounded like Donald Glover was just sleep talking. I don't know. Like he did, like he and Beyonce just sounded like they were bored in the recording booth.
Yeah, I might have missed that. I only saw it once, so
Well,
I
I don't
didn't catch
know.
up on it. I didn't catch, or what's the word? I didn't pick up on that my first time around, but I guess my love for Donald Glover just overrode it.
I get that. Donald Glover is the GOAT, greatest of all time. For those of you who don't know, who are confused as to why I just suddenly said GOAT. But yeah, just I don't know. Just overall, I think that the Disney live action remakes are pointless. I think that if Disney were to remake one of their older films, they should remake one of their older films that was less successful or less beloved, rather than their films that are more beloved or more successful. And I get why. I get why they're remaking their more successful films, you know, because nostalgia and money. But I don't know, just like yeah, I just feel like remaking the the older films, like this is how I feel about remakes in general, especially if the original is a film that's already beloved and it was already successful. I feel like by remaking a film that was already beloved and successful, it gives an excuse for whether it's an older film or a foreign film, it gives an excuse for younger audiences, or in the case of foreign films, American audiences, it gives them an excuse to not see the original. And I feel like that's bad because the originals, in my opinion, are so like special and and revered for a reason, for many reasons. And I feel like that by with these remakes, they're basically telling people, oh yeah, oh I don't like I with like there are some people who literally I'm not saying that you think this way, but there are some people who think that by watching these remakes, they can get away with not just seeing the originals, but not watching animated films or foreign films in general. And I think that that's really bad.
Interesting. So my, I guess, counterpoint would be that pretty much all of these remakes were already of movies that weren't original in the first place. The Little Mermaid is based on a fairy tale by Hans Christian Andersen. Beauty and the Beast is based on a fairy tale from France. Actually, I think there's so many iterations of that that it's not even necessarily just the French version. There's probably versions of it in other countries. And there was, for that matter, there's a version of Beauty and the Beast from the 1940s that is a French film. Aladdin is based on, 1001 Arabian Nights, I believe is the title. And there was a film version of that in the 20s, I believe. Lion King, I guess some people have said, it's a remake of Hamlet, so where it's very close to Hamlet. And isn't there another like animated film from the 60s that's not a Disney film that people said it was very similar to?
Oh yeah, Kimba and the White Lion or something like that.
That's right. That's right. And then, if we just go through like all of the Disneys since you and I are both 90s kids or born in the 90s, Pocahontas is obviously the story of the historical person, Pocahontas. Hunchback of Notre Dame is based on a book. Mulan is not an original tale either. It's based on a Chinese folk story. Tarzan is based on, I believe it wasn't there were movies of him in like the 30s or the 40s, weren't there, I believe?
Yeah.
The Jungle Book is based on Rudyard Kipling's books. So it's just, I think it's interesting that people will say that, it's not original, but it wasn't really original in the first place, technically. There's plenty of adaptations of books that become beloved films, like The Godfather or Fight Club. And, those are very beloved films, but they're not necessarily original. So I just think keeping in mind that these movies that you and I hold so close to our hearts because we grew up with them, other kids probably did also grow up with that story too, just not in the same form that we did. So I think if the same core of the story is there, I think that's probably, to me, what's more important than necessarily like, oh, this is a remake of something that I really liked and it's going to change my perception of it.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, no, that is definitely a very valid argument. Yeah, the original films aren't that really original either. They did take inspiration from other works and other stories, and in some cases even possibly quote unquote stealing in the case of the original Lion King, possibly. And that is a very valid argument to make. But my personal problem with many of the Disney live-action remakes is that it just feels like they copied and pasted like 90% of the original films, and then just sprinkle, and then the other 10% is just them sprinkling in like unnecessary, like extra stuff or convoluted stuff, like with the Aladdin remake. Jasmine's servant was like an unnecessary addition in my opinion, and her like love side story with her and the genie crushing on each other was just weird to me, because that actress is probably like 20 years younger than Will Smith.
Well, that has never stopped Hollywood before from casting older men with younger women.
It's still weird. It's still weird though.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that you say that, just because like you did say you think that they're like 90% the same and then they add things that are unnecessary. I feel like that's almost a contradiction in a sense. Like you're saying they're too similar, but then the things that they change, you don't like that either. Like with Mulan, they took out the songs and they took out Mushu and they changed some of the characters and they added another character, but it's not close enough to the original. So I feel like they can't, Disney or whoever in general makes a remake is not going to win either way. There's going to be somebody who's either going to be upset that it's not the same as the original, or it's too different.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying, and what you're saying before about nostalgia. It is definitely possible that I'm just being blinded by nostalgia, and I will acknowledge that there are things to appreciate about the live action remakes. I appreciated that Mulan, the filmmakers of Mulan, they intended to, even though I didn't like the film, they intended to make a very different film that actually really honored and properly adapted Chinese culture. I really liked that with Aladdin, Will Smith wasn't doing an imitation of Robin Williams, but his own thing. I really like that the Cinderella remake, even though most of it is the same film, they actually added depth to both the prince and the evil stepmother characters. Like they actually
Yeah.
gave both of those characters more depth. Whereas in the original Cinderella, the stepmother was just straight up evil, and the prince was just a hottie. And so
Yeah,
there are
exactly.
there are things in the remakes that I appreciate, and like also with the, well, this isn't technically a remake, but the Angelina Jolie Maleficent movie, I like that concept
Right.
where, oh, what if Maleficent wasn't actually evil but just misunderstood or like really hurt.
Yeah.
And the Jungle Book, they actually changed a lot for the Jungle Book with keeping the main story, and I actually really, that's my favorite of the Disney live action remakes. There are things with all the remakes that I like, and I appreciate the effort behind it, but either
Hmm.
just the execution is just not good, or certain elements to me just feel soulless. With the case of Mulan, I don't want this whole video to just be me like trashing on Mulan, but I do have to trash on
Yeah.
Mulan just a little bit more. Just with Mulan, it just felt like a product. Like these live action remakes, but especially Mulan, it just felt like a product to me. It felt like, to me, they were trying to appeal more to Chinese culture, not really so much to honor Chinese culture, but so that they could do well financially in China.
Okay, so then my question would be, since, like I mentioned, all of these remakes that Disney has done are based on movies that are already based on something else, do you think if a different film company, like let's just pick a random one, Universal, said they wanted to do a Mulan adaptation, and they're doing it obviously of just the character from the folklore, what would you think of that?
The same thing, really. Well, I'd have to wait and see. Well, I'd have to wait and see on like what Universal plans to do with the character, and I'd have to wait to see the finished product
Yeah.
because like if Universal had made the same movie that Disney made, then there might be a couple of people who are a little bit more positive on it because it's from a different film company or whatever, but
Mhm.
I'm not one of those people. I would still be just as critical if like a
Okay.
different studio did that.
Okay, because a similar thing would be that there's other adaptations of the story of Cinderella, and there's other adaptations of Beauty and the Beast. Like there's, I think it was 2011, Beastly came out, and that was like a modern version that's set in high school or something. And there's Cinderella, which was a stage play in the 60s, stage musical. And then they also did the Wonderful World of Disney version in, I believe, 1998 with Brandy, and Whoopi Goldberg was also in the cast of that. So I think personally, because I like the stories so much, I grew up on them and I was a big fairy tale fan when I was a little girl, that for me, I just like seeing the stories and how they can twist them differently or how they can add something. So for me, I enjoy pretty much all of them for that reason, because I like the story so much that it's just, for me, I guess it's almost like comfort food in a sense, because it's like I know what I'm getting into and I know like basically what's going to happen. So I'm going to be looking more for what's going to be different, or how is this actor going to do this differently than the voice actor, or how is this castle going to look that's going to be different than what they drew in the original film. So going back to the comfort food metaphor, it's just easy to digest in a sense, and I think there's a place for that in film. Like it's okay to have films that are simple and ones that we know very well, and ones that might be the same iteration of a tale that we already know, but that's okay.
Yeah, no, it is okay to have comfort food movies every once in a while. And and yeah, and one could argue that, like, oh, we get like hundreds of movies a year, and so why are you only complaining about a couple that really don't matter that much? The reason why it is kind of a bigger deal to me that these remakes essentially just feel like products and disappoint me is not so much with the films themselves, but because of people's response to these films. Beauty and the Beast,
Mm,
Aladdin, Lion King, all made over $1 billion each. And
yep.
meanwhile, like I mentioned before, there are all these other movies, like there are hundreds of other movies out there that are barely making their budgets back or like flopping financially. And that's a big factor as to why like these like well remakes in general, but also like uh the Disney live action remakes, why they bother me is because they're taking attention and money away from like smaller movies or like other movies that deserve just as much, if not more, attention and money. They're taking away from these smaller films and like all my friends are talking about like like last year all my friends are talking about Aladdin or Lion King or whatever and but when I would mention like smaller films, like let's say like The Lighthouse or Parasite, or even smaller films than that, like I don't know, like the King or I Lost My Body, my friends would be like, "What's that?" And I don't know, that just really that just really bothers me. Yeah, like you can have comfort food movies like every once in a while, but it shouldn't be the dominant source of discussion or amongst uh, mainstream movie watching audiences. And but it is, and that really disappoints me a lot.
Sure, sure. I understand that. I think part of the reason why it becomes so dominant, aside from the fact that it's, a big company and so it's going to get more publicity and more press than a smaller film company would. But the price of film going to the movie theaters, at least, has gone up a lot for most people. Well, it went up for everybody. It didn't necessarily go up for specific people or not. But in terms of like, if you make $100,000 a year, like a $15 movie ticket isn't necessarily going to be as cost prohibitive to you as it would to somebody who's making, $30,000 a year, just for example. So people who aren't necessarily big film goers, but enjoy films in general, it seems that at least in the past decade, the trends have been to go to see movies not as often as they did in the past. It's not necessarily like an experience as it used to be. So what happens, or what seems to have happened, is that people will be very selective about what they see because it's so costly. So what they're going with, the process that might go through someone's mind is, okay, well, I know I'm going to hang out with my friends this weekend and we all agreed to go to a movie, but I haven't been to a movie in a while and I'm probably not going to go again for a while, so I better pick the one that I really really want to see, or that everybody can agree on. And so if you get those movies that are more niche movies, there's a niche the smaller movies that have smaller fans, like The Lighthouse, that's not going to be appealing to everybody. And so if you're in a group of people, like, you might not be able to get everybody to agree on that, whereas a movie like a Disney remake or a superhero movie, like, you know what you're getting into, and you know that you're probably going to have a good time in general, because you know what to expect. You're not going to have to come out afterwards and have some argument with your friend about what it meant, or or that kind of thing. Like, you can just have a good time with your buddies. And then the same thing with families, it even kind of goes back to Mulan with the whole $30 on Disney Plus thing. If a family of, say, four, a mom, a dad, or just two parents and two kids want to go to the movies, that's probably what, at least $50? I'm not sure. I'm a single person. I don't have kids, so I only know how much it is for me. But I'd say at least $50 just on the movie tickets, let's just say. Like, you're not going to be able to do that every weekend. So if you have young kids, obviously you're not going to take them to the Lighthouse. You're not going to take them to Deadpool necessarily. Well, some might, but in general, they're probably not going to. So it's important for them, when they're making the decision of what to see, that it's something that their whole family can enjoy. So I think that's part of the process of why they made so much money off of these remakes because they were things that were easy, they were familiar, and they were things that still looked really cool on a big screen, and they were worth going out for, at least in the eyes of the, I guess, regular moviegoers.
Yeah, I get that, but there are more moviegoers than just, families with little kids. And because, like if only families with little kids went to see these remakes like Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, then it wouldn't make $1 billion. It made $1 billion because people who are adults who grew up with the original, or like teenagers, college students with some free time, whatever, they saw it as well. They saw it as well, and they also liked or loved it. So it's not just families with kids going to see these movies. And so, like, yes.
Oh, definitely not. I didn't mean to generalize that, the only
No, no,
people
no.
who saw them were, but like the cost, you have to admit that the cost of movies, like in general, I mean, I'm glad that AMC introduced its A-list program, because that kind of probably could cut down on it for some people. But still, even just for like a single person like me, if I didn't have A-list, going to a movie would still cost me $15 a ticket, and I would not do that every weekend if that was the case. I can tell you I wouldn't. So if I was going to go to the movies with knowing that I'm going to be spending at least $15, I'm going to make sure that it's something that I know that I really want to spend $15 on.
No, and yeah, I get that. I totally get that. Yeah. I don't know. I think that's where it also depends on what kinds of movies you like to watch, because I don't mind watching smaller movies, like paying $10-15 a ticket to watch a smaller movie, those Oscar baiting movies. Well, it depends on, if I'm interested in the story or not. But like, like
Good for $15.
I really didn't mind paying $15 to see Parasite. I really didn't mind paying $15 to see the Peanut Butter Falcon. Which is another film that none of my friends talked about, even though I thought it was great. So like, yeah, like those like smaller films like these, like I really don't mind that like me like paying so much to see it, because even though it wasn't action packed or like really cinematic, I still was able to get a great theater experience out of watching them. But that's just me. I
Yeah.
know it's not going to be everybody, and I know that studios have to think about mass audience appeal and all that, but I don't know.
Quadrants, I think they call it.
I'm sorry?
I think they call it 4 quadrants or something.
Yeah. I've heard that term too, and again, I get it, and I'm not completely against remakes in general. There are some remakes that I think I'm glad that they got made, and definitely have a purpose to being made as well. But it just feels like Disney or like other studios, when they remake certain properties, they care more about profit rather than like story or character. Like
Yeah,
they'll claim to care about story and character, but it ends up becoming evident that they don't.
yeah, it's tough. I mean, Disney is a really big company, so this isn't really necessarily just about Disney, but like, yeah, they are making films, but they're in the business of making films. Like, people who are just filmmakers, obviously, when they're making their films, they have a very specific goal that they want to do with the story and how they want to tell it, or what their purpose is in making it. And if they make money off of it, like, well, that's great too. Like, they're not necessarily out to make the film to make money. And then, maybe as they get more successful, though, they feel like they can, make that remake of a successful property, or, a sequel to, Iron Man or whatever, for example. And so then it kind of becomes like, it's almost like it's tiered almost. Like, you start out as a small time indie filmmaker, and then that film gets successful. And then there used to be, a lot more mid-budget films is what they call them, but those kind of are going by the wayside. It's either like the budget's 100 million or like 1 million, and that's it. There's not really a lot in between. But
Right.
anyway, like I was saying, like a tier system, you start low and then you keep moving up and then you get more and more budgets and then you can just kind of do whatever the heck you want and become Christopher Nolan. Then
Right.
you can just make anything you want and they'll just make you money.
Right. And speaking of Nolan, actually, I'm not, I'm not, like I said before, I do appreciate some remakes. I'm not against the concept of remaking something in general. And I'm also
Hmm.
not one of those snobby people that's like, oh, original films only. Because
Yeah.
because speaking of Nolan, I just recently watched Tenet, which is an original film that was very flawed and doesn't necessarily warrant paying $15 to see that in a theater, even though it is very
Wow.
cinematic. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't know if that's really worth, even though it has grand visuals, just the story was and characters were kind of weak in Tenet.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was okay. I found it pretty, the concept was very cool. I liked the concept and I liked kind of seeing where the story was going, but so much of it was a bit muddled and confusing, and it was just kind of like the whole movie was just explaining what was happening the whole time. And when I was in college and took writing classes, that was like the number one thing they told us not to do. Was the phrase they used was exposition without conflict. So it's like, obviously you're going to have to explain some aspects of your world, like that's a given. Like you can't just know, it's very rare that you can just jump into a world and understand everything without being told anything in the background. But what the key is that there's some kind of conflict while you're doing it. You know, like you're not just saying, hello, this is my castle and I was born in it, or something like really silly like that, for example. But
Right.
like for Tenet, it was just, John David Washington was explaining things or having things explained to him, and then he moved to another place and then had something else explained to him. And it was like, okay, so the conflict, there was conflict in the movie. I mean, obviously, he was trying, what was it? What was the plot of this movie? Can we figure it out? I don't know.
Internet has a lot of issues, like you just mentioned, and that's an original film. So yeah, I'm definitely not saying like, oh, only like people should only watch like original films and only original films should
Right,
be
right.
made by these big studios. No, like, and some of my favorite movies are remakes or adaptations. Not necessarily
Yeah.
original.
Mhm.
The Planet of the Apes movies, the new ones, that's like motion capture
Yes, those are very good.
CGI. Yeah, those all three of those are great, and
Yeah.
those are all a reboot of the original films with Charlton Heston, which in those are
Hmm.
based off of a book. So
Yeah.
yeah, so like so yeah, like I know that I'm pretty sure that there were a few people when they first announced the Planet of the Apes reboot. They were like, oh, the original is always going to be the best, and this
Yeah.
reboot's going to suck. And then it turned out to actually, and oh, remakes are all bad. And then it turned out to actually be pretty good. So,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
but
Well, plus I know your most anticipated film for 2020, if it stays, is Dune, and
yeah.
that's a new version of an adaptation of a book. So,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, some of my favorite movies or most anticipated films are remakes or adaptations. But you mentioned before the phrase exposition without conflict. That's something you learned in
yes.
writing class. And
Yes.
I found a lot of that to be even in the Jungle Book, which I really like that movie.
Yeah.
Didn't it bother you didn't it bother you? Literally all of them have exposition without conflict. And doesn't that bother you then?
Well, the whole movie is an exposition without conflict. I mean,
What
well,
do you mean
let's,
by that?
which one should we analyze? Let's pick one.
Well, all of them. Lion King, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, all of them feature expositional dialogue that slows the movie down and is dialogue that's not interesting and told just to convey information to the audience. All of those movies, Mulan, Jungle Book, Cinderella, regardless of what I think of the movies themselves, all of them feature expositional dialogue that slow the movie down rather than interesting dialogue that keeps the momentum going.
Well, I guess I'd probably ask for more specific examples because, like I said, I don't feel like the whole entirety of the movies were like that.
Well,
Like,
neither was Tenet, but you pointed that out as a flaw for Tenet, and yet these Disney live-action remakes feature the same flaw. You seemed to overlook it a bit.
okay, maybe I did. Maybe I should watch them again.
I mean, I'm not trying to, attack you or accuse you or anything. I'm just saying that, like, I'm just saying that, some people might be, like, like, I'm there are definitely certain situations where I'm blinded by nostalgia, and I feel like, there are other people who are blinded by nostalgia, but with the remakes that, they really, with the live action Disney remakes or like other remakes, it's like you said, like there are flaws and stuff, and or things that they don't
Yeah.
like, but they're able to overlook that stuff easily because of the original story or nostalgia that reminds them so much of the original, and that feeling of
Mhm.
satisfaction that they get from the original core story if it's kept, or nostalgia referencing the original film. That satisfaction that they get from that is so strong that they can forgive any other issues that the remakes might have, and that's just not me. And I'm saying that might be you, and that there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but that's just not me. But I think that you might be subconsciously forgiving flaws that you would recognize in other films, but because you love the core stories of Aladdin or Beauty and the Beast so much that even when you see these same flaws involved in properties that you love or remind you of stuff that you loved, then you're able to forgive him a lot more.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah, and there's nothing, there's nothing really wrong with that. It's not a way of thinking that I have or I necessarily agree with, but I'm not going to say, "Oh, you shouldn't think like that," or like, "Oh, you're not a real like film lover. You're not a real film critic."
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying that at all. It's just an
No,
observation.
I didn't get that. Don't worry. I didn't get that impression.
Okay, good. I get why people like all the Disney live action remakes, and I get why people tolerate remakes in general. But I don't know. I just for me, I definitely prefer, like original films over remakes, over reboots, all that stuff. But I understand why people, and especially more so now with some very good points that you brought up. I understand a little bit more so now why people, especially with the Disney live action remakes, why they enjoy them, with the exception of Mulan and Beauty and the Beast, which are just pure garbage.
Well, so here's another thing that's not related to the Disney remakes, but remakes in general. Spielberg is remaking West Side Story,
Oh, yeah.
and I feel like, are we? I of course read some people who said like, oh, that's a terrible idea, but I feel like a lot of people also, because it's Spielberg, are like, hey, if anyone can do it, Spielberg can, or even with Dune, like if anyone can do it, Villeneuve can, because he's proven himself to be a very good filmmaker and he's worked in sci-fi before, so he knows what he's doing and he's a very well liked filmmaker in film circles. So I'm curious, like if Steven Spielberg was the director of, Beauty and the Beast 2017, what would that have been like? Would that be different? Would we be like, well, it's Spielberg, so it's probably going to be better than most films, or would we be like, oh, geez, Spielberg, what a sellout, or something like that?
I feel like it would be the same reaction. People would be half and half. Oh, Spielberg's a sellout, or another half people would be saying that. Other half of people would be saying, oh, Spielberg's such a good filmmaker that maybe he can do it. And I think that nostalgia. I will confess, I am definitely blinded by nostalgia right now because I love the original West Side Story, which that film isn't original either.
Mm-hmm.
That film is based off of a play. And and
Yep.
the original Dune movie that David Lynch made. I don't think that that's a very good movie. Not horrible, but not very good. The nostalgia is definitely affecting me here because if I did like or love the original Dune movie, I probably would be more skeptical towards the Denis Villeneuve version. But because the original
Yeah.
is not that good, and because of my love for Denis Villeneuve, whatever you pronounce his name,
Yeah.
I have more anticipation for the newer one, and
Yeah.
if the original West Side Story was not good or bad, then I definitely would have more anticipation for the Spielberg's West Side Story. But because
Yeah.
I love the original so much, I'm not really looking forward to Spielberg's take on it. So yeah,
Interesting.
nostalgia definitely is a factor here, and I will admit that it is a little like blind to me, and I am trying to fight it a little, but it, it's just it's interesting though, isn't it? Like if we
Yeah.
love the original or if we have reverence for it, we're like, oh no, don't remake it. But if it's something that like wasn't that good, or if we genuinely think that a brand new perspective or a brand new take can be satisfying to watch, we'll give it a pass.
Yeah, no, I think that's interesting too because this is I guess more of a personal experience, but I used to do community theater, and one play that I did was one called Nine Girls, and it was from the 1940s, and it was about sorority girls in this murder mystery in a sorority house. And they actually made a movie about it in the 40s, but it was like so small, like it was even hard for our director to even find it for us. And so as I was acting in it and reading it and learning the story, I was like, I'm surprised that they haven't remade this because it could be like a horror film pretty easily. And they haven't. It's like, well, there's a there's a property that you could remake and nobody would even know because I hadn't heard of it before I did the play. I'm going to assume, and I know it's a bad thing to assume, but I'm going to assume you hadn't heard of it until I just mentioned it. And but it's a fairly interesting story. Like I said, it's about these sorority girls in a murder mystery, and I'm surprised they never remade that. It would be easy and nobody would even know it was a remake, so they could probably get away with it.
I think that like studios, especially Disney, should like actually remake like older forgotten or unknown properties. Like I think that that would be like I think that Disney kind of had the right idea with the Lady and the Tramp remake that went straight to Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I don't think the original is that good. Like the original, the one of the only good things about the original really is the famous spaghetti scene where the dogs share a plate of
Right.
spaghetti and then they share the strand
Right.
and like kiss and all that stuff.
Iconic.
But yeah, iconic, exactly. But like when a lot of people were actually hating on the live action Lady and the Tramp remake, being like, "Oh, Disney, another Disney live action remake? Like, really?" But then I was like, like the original wasn't that good, and it did feature those racist Siamese cats, so
Yeah.
maybe let's give it a chance. And then it went
Yeah.
straight to Disney Plus, and it wasn't that good. So despite the very good intentions, because I don't know if you knew this, but the dogs in the Lady and the Tramp remake are not only real, but Disney actually rescued them from the pound.
Yeah.
And I thought
That's
that that
right.
was very noble of them to rescue these dogs and find them good homes after filming. And I
For
thought that
sure.
it was great that they were going to, with Lady and the Tramp and Tim Burton's Dumbo remake, that they were going to get rid of the problematic racist uh,
Yeah.
elements from the original, and
Hmm.
also try to change things up a bit with how the film was presented. Like with Mulan. Like I think that's an interesting concept of a more serious non-musical take
Yeah. Hmm.
film version of the story. Like Lady and the Tramp, Dumbo, Mulan, all of these. I appreciate the intent,
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
I mean, I haven't seen Dumbo, but I just didn't really
I
like.
have.
Oh, you have seen Dumbo?
Yeah, I have seen both the original and the remake. Hmm.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I just well, I can't comment on Dumbo, but
Right.
the Lady and the Tramp and Mulan, I just didn't really like the execution that much.
Sure. That makes sense.
And I think that's another very important factor as well is the execution because like I think that yeah, I think that how you tell your story, how you film it, your like intent behind it, like I think that that's all like very important because like yeah, you because if you want to remake something, you gotta hire director, crew, cast that actually like wants to make a good movie and isn't just like, oh, I'm doing this for the money, you know?
Right. Well, so since this is kind of going back a little bit, but you mentioned Maleficent, what do you think about the upcoming Cruella film with Emma Stone?
I'm not really looking forward to that one because they already did it. They in the 90s, 101 Dalmatians with Glenn Close.
True.
Disney already remade 101 Dalmatians. So like I don't so why are they and this time oh with a younger Cruella DeVille, you know, we're gonna show the backstory of
Yeah, because women
how
aren't allowed to age in Hollywood, so it has to always be the younger version.
exactly yeah. And it's like I feel like the Cruella DeVille movie with Emma Stone is basically just gonna be Maleficent, but with Emma Stone and dogs. So it's just like I don't know, like execution is important, but some ideas are just so like weak or half baked that it just doesn't work. It can't work no matter how hard the filmmakers or cast and crew try.
Yeah, that's true. And then going off of that also with in terms of upcoming films, what are your thoughts on the Little Mermaid remake?
So the Little Mermaid remake. So I think that Disney hiring that singer Hal, I think you know that was a
Halle
very
Bailey.
sorry
Halle Bailey is her name.
Halle Bailey. Yeah. She's yeah that black singer. I think
Yes.
hiring her to be Ariel was a very it's controversial but
Yeah,
very
to
bold.
say the least.
Sorry.
To say the least, a controversial decision.
Yeah. I'm one of the few people that actually really likes that choice. I actually
I
hadn't
agree.
yeah, and yeah, I'm glad you do too. And I actually never heard of her before her casting in The Little Mermaid, so I was like, like, but I just relied on my knowledge that there's this black singer being cast. They're basically casting a black girl to be Ariel, and
Yeah.
you know like and there's some times where diversity casting is annoys me because they do it just for the sake of having diversity. But I don't know. I think
Mhm.
that featuring a girl of color to be Ariel is actually very interesting, and it actually makes me not super excited, but a little excited for
Oh,
the,
good.
the Little Mermaid remake. And also, I love Melissa McCarthy, so I can't. So I'm really interested in seeing her take on Ursula.
Oh, good. I feel like a lot of backlash was against her too.
No, there was definitely, but so far I'm really liking the casting for the Little Mermaid remake. But of course, what's
Too.
important is the filmmaker's intention and how they're gonna tell the story. Are they just gonna tell the same story as the original, or are they gonna do something different? We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. But I'm checking who the writers are on it.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't even know that there were any writers or a director on it. Like, I honestly didn't know that.
They're filming it right now. I think they started filming it now that it's filming in England since they're able to open things in England, but not in America. But I think it was already planning to film in England, so that doesn't really matter. But they did actually start filming it last month, I believe.
Oh, so they do have a director and writers.
Yeah, the director is Rob Marshall. Jane Goldman might have been attached to it, but that might have been a different version.
Wait,
And
Jane
Jane Goldman's
Goldman?
actually one of my favorite writers, so if that's the case and she's the writer, then I'm going to be very, very excited.
Jane Goldman, the same person who worked on Kick-Ass and Kingsman.
Yes, Kingsman's
Wow.
actually one of my favorite movies. And Stardust, she also wrote Stardust with Matthew Vaughn. She
Oh yeah.
co-writes with Matthew Vaughn a lot, and I adore her. She's not relevant to this conversation, but yeah, she's my favorite screenwriter. So, okay, so the writer for this Little Mermaid remake is David McGee. And if I click on his name, it says he's also written Life of Pi, Mary Poppins Returns, Finding Neverland, and Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day. So I guess the Jane Goldman version was a different one. There was another one that was going around a few years ago with like Chloe Moretz, who was going to star in it, but I guess it got dropped or something because the Disney one went forward.
Maybe it's the same one. Maybe originally the Disney one was Chloe Grace Moretz and Jane Goldman, but then they both dropped out.
It might be, yeah. They always make like two versions of it. Like, you know, even with the Jungle Book, they also had the Andy Serkis directed version that was called Mowgli, Legend of the Jungle, I think was the full
Right.
title. So they had two Jungle Book adaptations within like 2 years of each other. So they probably would,
Yeah.
and even with The Little Mermaid, there was one film called The Little Mermaid that came out in 2018, and it wasn't really like it wasn't like the Disney version at all. It was just about like I did see it. It was a very small film, and I don't think a lot of people saw it, but it was basically this girl, or no, the main story was this guy who's a reporter, and he takes his niece to like a carnival. And at the carnival, they see like this girl who comes out of like the water, and she's supposed to be a mermaid. And it was kind of weird, and it wasn't really that well done, but it was a different take on like the concept of, you know, a mermaid. So at least it had that, but yeah, the execution was not great. But anyway, the point is there's always like 10 versions of anything happening at one time.
Yeah, but sometimes like even though there are a lot of versions of a certain story, you can still tell it in a unique or different way.
Yeah, yeah.
Star is Born, Les Miserables, Little Women, there are like
Yep.
5 films of all of those stories, but
Yeah,
I
I was
think
going to
that
mention those too.
yeah, I actually really like Greta Gerwig's Little Women and Bradley Cooper's A Star is Born. I really like both those movies actually.
Have
The
you seen the other ones though?
I've seen all of the A Star is Born movies, all four, I
Okay.
think. I've
Yeah.
seen with Janet Gaynor and Frederick March,
Yep.
James Mason, Judy Garland, which is my favorite
Uh-huh.
out of the four.
I
Um,
agree. That's this one.
yeah, Barbara Streisand, Chris Christopherson, which was bad. And
Mhm.
A Star is Born, Bradley Cooper one didn't really do that much different compared to the rest, but I still really liked it and appreciated it for some reason. The case with Little Women, though, I had only seen one other version, the Winona Ryder version.
Yeah.
So I can only, and I haven't read the book, so I can only compare it with the Winona Ryder version because I haven't seen any
Yeah.
of the other movies or read the book.
Right.
So, so I really liked the Greta Gerwig one and the Les Miserables one. I think besides the Hugh Jackman movie, I think I only saw one other version with Liam Neeson and Jeffrey Rush, which actually isn't a musical. It's just straight up
Right.
regular movie
Yeah.
based off the
Yeah.
novel. Which I actually thought that the Les Miserables with Liam Neeson was slightly better, but not. Neither movie is like really great in my opinion. They're just fine. My mood when it comes to remakes or reboots is my familiarity with the original film or source material, and my
That makes
opinion,
sense.
yeah, and my opinion on said film or source material, and that's the case for everybody. And
Yeah.
that's the beauty of movies and movie watching is that not everybody's gonna agree. Not everybody's gonna have the same tastes or opinions. And I think that it's great actually when two people who have very different opinions come together and civilly, in a civil manner, not arguing, in a civil manner, discuss
Yes.
why one of them like why one of them may have liked Mulan and why one of them didn't. Get the hint?
Yeah.
But but yeah, I just yeah, just I don't know. Like yeah, so yeah, I'm not completely against remakes being made. Just my personal preference is that with Disney specifically, I wish Disney would remake or adapt properties that of their lesser known films or films that like
Yeah.
bombs. Like I would love to see a live action remake of Treasure Planet. Oh, that would be great.
That's really interesting you bring that up because that's literally the movie I'm probably going to watch tonight, and I've never seen it. And I
Oh,
was trying
really?
to see if I could squeeze it in before this conversation because I had a feeling it was going to come up because I've seen things online of like fan castings of probably like Tom Holland as the main role or something. I think I don't know if you've seen that, but I see a lot of talk about it and I've never actually seen it. So I guess I'm definitely going to watch it now after this conversation.
I the original Treasure Planet, I really like that film. It's not perfect. It definitely has issues. I will warn you, the robot character in Treasure Planet is really annoying.
Okay.
He's definitely he's definitely the worst part of the movie.
Well, so what are we talking about? Because like, keep in mind that some characters that others find annoying, I don't really care. Like Jar Jar Binks is considered very annoying. I don't really care. I don't think he's that bad. So if it's like that, then it's probably fine.
That you probably won't mind. You probably won't mind then. Yeah, you probably won't mind the robot character, but I don't know. I just even watching it as a kid, I found him annoying.
Interesting.
But yeah, like I wish that like Disney would could remake like older films like Treasure Planet or like The Black Cauldron or even like the
Yeah.
really obscure Disney films like The Absent-Minded Professor, which is in black and white Disney film from the 60s about a professor of science who discovers the ability to fly.
Yeah, you went real deep on that one. That's one that I've only heard the name and I didn't know anything else about.
Exactly, yeah. Like I think it'd be interesting if Disney remade something like that. And the Black
Yeah, I
Cauldron
mean,
is very
probably.
infamous in Disney history. So like if Disney remade something like that too, that would be very interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably going to. I know they've said they're going to remake Hercules. I mean, they're going to keep doing it because they're going to keep making money. So they'll just keep doing like what you say, and they'll just find more obscure ones and just put them out. And some of
And
them will be so obscure that people won't even know they're a remake
and
until they're
here's
told.
yeah, and here's where the nostalgia factor comes in because them remaking Hercules is not a bad idea, but I'm already like ill on it because I love the original Hercules a lot. So it's not a bad idea. It's like I did they could pull it off, but already I'm skeptical because I actually really like the original Hercules a lot.
Yeah, I like it too. And the interesting thing about Hercules is that since that movie came out in, I think, 97, they've had the film industry in general, not Disney. There's already been two live action Hercules since then, at least that I can think of. There's
Right.
The Legend of Hercules with Kellen Lutz, which, in my opinion, is the worst film ever made. And there's the one with Dwayne Johnson, which I think what was the title of that one? Just Hercules or something? Or
Yeah, just Hercules.
yeah, I didn't see that one, but I mean, they've already done adaptations of that too. So it's like, let's just add another one. Why not? Let's just get 5 versions of every story.
So
It's
you're
fine. Why
saying
not?
so you're saying that The Legend of Hercules with Kellen Lutz is the best movie ever made?
I'm saying if someone believes that, then they have not watched enough movies.
You know what's funny is that I actually saw the poster. So I saw the poster for it and
Uh-huh.
the trailer, and I legit thought that the trailer was fake because of how bad it looked. But then I did some more research and I was like, no, this is a real film. Wow,
Yeah,
just from the trailer,
it's,
they really messed up just from the trailer.
dude, I mean, I was fortunate to only see it once, but I saw it for free. I got like a free pass and it was still a waste of money. It was a waste of the gas money that I went to the theater. It was a waste of my time. It was a waste of the snacks that I bought. Like
Well,
all of it was just terrible. And the thing that makes it so bad for me, like I've seen other bad movies or movies that I consider bad, like The Room or, like really obscure, like low budget movies. But the
yeah.
difference between those is like they are low budget and they're not necessarily like, yeah, of course they're trying to do something good, I'm sure. But like, I know that their budget was low and they were doing what they could with what they had. But like a movie like Legend of Hercules did not have a budget of $100,000. Like I don't know what it was, but it certainly wasn't low. And it's like you went to all this effort, spent all this money, and it still is this bad. Like that just makes it worse for me. Like what happened? Who told you this was good? Who like approved this?
Yeah, and also Kellen Lutz, bad actor, just
Yeah,
bad
he's
actor.
not good. Yeah, he's not.
I,
I
I
agree.
am I am going to wrap things up in a little bit, but I just
Sure.
have a couple of final thoughts before
Okay.
we end this episode. One
Okay.
thing that literally just came into my mind now is uh, have you seen? Well, actually, no one has seen it because it got canceled before it even premiered. But I don't know if you heard that they were gonna make a Heather's musical like a show on Paramount Network. A
Yes.
musical remake of the original Winona Ryder film, which is great, by the way. If you have not seen
I have
Heather's,
seen it. It is great. Yeah.
if you have not seen anyone listening, if you have not seen Heather's with Winona Ryder, it is one of the funniest, darkest, and coolest films I have ever seen. It's great. Please watch it.
I agree.
But they actually Paramount Network, which was originally Spike TV,
Hmm.
where they originally were going to make a show, and the backlash against it was so intensely strong that they shelved and canceled it even before it premiered. Like people were completely against it, and yeah, and they really hated that. They really hated the diversity casting, the fact that they cast like people in the LGBT community and trans people as the
Hmm.
villains. Like that really
Right.
bothered. Like there's the villainous characters that really bothered a lot of people, considering that the villainous characters from the original Heathers would be the ones picking on the LGBT
Right.
people if
Right.
the movie was made today. So the fact that the LGBT people were cast as the villainous characters really pissed a lot of people off. And
Yeah.
the,
Understandable.
but I think that the concept of remaking something, but as like a different genre, is interesting. There's a movie from the 80s called Valley Girl with Nicolas Cage, and
Yes.
they remade it into this year actually. They
Yeah,
remade
I
it.
saw it. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I actually watched a half hour of it, but I turned it off once I saw Logan Paul's awful face.
Yeah, it was a bit much to get through that. But fortunately he wasn't the main character. But yeah, I'm with you on that.
So yeah, but I actually think that that's very interesting to remake something, but as a completely different genre. Like I think you could
Yeah.
do a lot with that actually. Sam Raimi kind of did that with Evil Dead, where like, well, it's not a remake, but like the original Evil Dead is a straight up horror film about
Right.
these dumb, horny, immature college
Right.
kids going off to a secluded cabin and then getting killed off one by these creatures.
Yeah.
But the Evil Dead, this isn't a remake, but Evil Dead, the sequel, Evil Dead 2, was a lot
Hmm.
more campy and darkly comical. And
Okay.
but I think that that's interesting when like a remake, a sequel, a reboot, whatever goes in a very different genre, which is something that you
Yeah.
a really different genre. I think that's something that you could, or a different tone. I think that that's something that you could really pull off if done right. But I personally, I did not think that Valley Girl did a good job.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, they made it into a musical and they used a bunch of 80s songs, and it was kind of like a cute little jukebox musical. It was fine. It wasn't, amazing, and it wasn't terrible, but
Oh,
I
I
didn't
thought,
really love the original either. I thought it was kind I don't know. My problem is a lot of movies like that. I feel like there's too much like instant attraction and instant love, and that's kind of like something that I'm like, I understand that because obviously like humans are attracted to other humans when they see them. Like that's not like that's not untrue. But it's like, can we have like a little bit more of like expanding their relationship so it's not just
exactly.
like, oh, you're hot. Oh, me too. Okay, we're a couple now. Like, okay. So that was like, I don't really think they did that any differently in the new version either, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
and another thing that with the new one that I didn't necessarily like was the cast was like super old. Like, God, I'm blanking on her name. The actress in it is from Happy Death Day, and I love her, and I can't remember her name, and I feel
Jessica
really
Roth.
terrible. Yes, that's right. She's like 30 years old now. She might even be older than that, actually.
He's
And even
probably
though,
older than 30.
yeah, and it's like, does she look 30 or 35? No, but she doesn't look 18 either. Like,
Yeah,
and even the male lead, I'm like, there's no way that, like, this is like Grease all over again.
exactly.
These are the oldest teenagers in existence. I thought maybe before like the movie came out, like they were going to like still keep the story, but maybe they were going to make them college students. And I would have bought that more than, them still being high school students, but no, they kept that the same. It's like, okay, well, whatever. There's
Well,
precedents for this in Hollywood, so it's not like this is a new thing.
yeah, but to be fair, they that is an issue with the original Valley Girl as well, because like Nicolas Cage was definitely over 18 playing a high school student in the original Valley Girl.
Yeah,
I'm
he
not
wasn't
defending
30.
the remake. Like I said, I only
Right,
watched
right,
like a half hour of it before turning it off, mostly because of Logan Paul,
right.
but the original, like, well, most unfortunately most that's a topic for a whole nother episode,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
why like Hollywood casts like these people that are clearly over 18 to be high school students.
Most of the time they have to. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I
Child
get it.
labor laws, they have to, for the
Yeah,
most part.
I get it with like labor laws and stuff, but it's still, a turn off.
I mean, I don't see a problem with like, I would say up to probably age 23 or 24 for the actor. I'd say that's probably the limit. I mean, some people still have really young baby faces when they're older, but like if you're old enough to be out of college, you're probably too old to play high school. Probably.
Well, I'm not trying to brag, but I'm gonna be 25 in 2 months, and at
Uh,
work, people tell me that they ask me, "Oh, so you just what college are you gonna go to?"
yeah, that's
Thinking that I'm
cool.
18 or 19. So
Yeah, I get that.
I think I could pull off playing a playing a high school
If
student.
you want, sure. I mean, like I said, there's definitely exceptions. I'm not.
But going back to remakes,
Right,
like
right.
I just I think that like I said, presenting something in a very different like tone or perspective can be very interesting. And there are also remakes or adaptations where, for example, let's say that the original film is based off of a book or whatever, but it
Hmm.
strayed so far from the book that it disappointed film lovers, so they could remake it
Yeah,
into something that is more faithful to the book.
yeah,
So, so more faithful, maybe not so much to the story, but to like the tone or the spirit of the book, or maybe the original source material wasn't even that good, and then they made it into a movie which wasn't that good, and then basically. with remakes and like reboots and adaptations, it's making films in general is not easy, and coming up, and it is hard. And I
Yeah.
get why a lot of people are desiring more and pushing for more original films in Hollywood, but it's hard to come up with original ideas because there
Yeah.
are already so many films, so many stories out there that it's hard to be original.
Yeah, it is for sure. And I can definitely attest to that as somebody who wants to write films. It's very,
Yeah,
very
and and from both a business and a creative perspective, it's easier to just to adapt something or to like borrow elements from already from pre-existing movies or shows or books or whatever that people already love. It's easier to just take tropes that people already like and put it into your work to guarantee, to or increase your chances of financial or critical success. It's easier to
yeah.
just copy and paste. And so yeah, I get why, and many people don't mind that as long as, like you said, the core of the story or the spirit
Yeah.
of the original is still intact. And so,
Hmm.
because of that mentality, I do get why people like the Disney live action remakes or like other remakes or adaptations. But I just,
Right.
yeah, I just
It's
wish
just not
that,
for you, and that's okay.
yeah, it's just not for me. And I would be more fine with like Beauty and the Beast and Lion King, etc., if they didn't feel like, to me, like products,
Yeah.
or that they were different, or that they differentiated certain elements just for the sake of being different. Like, what was the point of making Emma Watson in Beauty and the Beast an inventor? Like, she was already a reader. Why did they also make her an inventor as well?
What, she can only be a reader?
Well,
She can only have one thing that she likes.
but
Just kidding.
but her being an inventor had no point in the story. It never came up again. They just brought it up as a quirky trait to be, different than the original Belle from the original Beauty and the Beast.
Well, I believe maybe they were trying to like give her another connection with her father, like,
Because her
showing
dad's an
that,
inventor.
yeah, because like if he's an adventure too, and I mean in the original it wasn't like he didn't like his daughter, obviously, like they were a very loving father and daughter relationship. But I think maybe they were trying to give another example of like, oh look, he's a supportive father and he's not just being like, oh, you're my daughter, you should go get married or whatever. Like, I don't know. I guess I can just come up with excuses for them.
I get it, and but I gotta say, we that this episode is going to be really difficult to edit because basically both of us just went on long tangents, changing subject constantly. I
We
don't
did,
even
yeah.
think it's appropriate to title this episode a one about remakes anymore because we went on a whole bunch of tangents and stuff.
Maybe you should break it up.
But I still really enjoyed it, and I want to thank you
Me
again,
too.
MaryAnn, for being on the podcast and for sharing a whole new, different perspective on remakes and bring up points I didn't even consider previously.
Yeah, no, thank you. You did the same. I kind of went into it thinking it was going to go one way and then it didn't. So I'm really glad that we had this
Was
discussion.
was I able to convince you that Beauty and the Beast and Mulan are not worthy of being liked?
Are not worth what?
Not worthy of being liked at all?
No, absolutely not.
I kid. But seriously, thank you, Marianne. I hope that I can have you again on the podcast.
Sure, I would love to.
Yeah, and next time, guaranteed, will be much more on topic and less of changing a subject and going on random tangents.
Sure. Speak for yourself. I'm not making any promises.
Nah, you're good. And I want to thank you guys listening out there. Thank you guys for listening to another episode of my podcast, Podcast Racing. I hope that all of you are doing well, staying safe, social distancing, wearing masks, and all that. And
Yep, agreed.
yeah, definitely. And if you do decide, especially do so if you decide to go to a theater, stay safe. And yeah, I'll see you guys in next week's episode. Bye.